This event has three parts to it. The first is reality, and the reality will consist of two short lectures, one by yours truly, one by my mother, on kind of the definitions of what exactly is this thing that we call the subconscious. Then we will take those elements of reality and we will digest it. And we will digest it through four really wonderful workshops / presentations that explore how do you uncover your subconscious. And then once you've uncovered what's in your subconscious, how do you try to make a change? Or how do you try to make peace with what's down inside there? And then after that, after we go through these cycles of digestion, we will give birth to it using some of the symbolism of Somnambuland. And Somnambuland is the name of my mythological universe. It represents in some ways my subconscious. And then at the absolute end, once everything is over, there'll be an epilogue for anyone that's interested on the behind the scenes processing that went into the symbolic design of the little dance that we'll do. At any time, get some food, go to the bathroom, insect repellent is over there. Once your cup is full, it's okay to just fade away. You don't have to sit through everything. You can go rest in the house too. Everything is super chill. All right, so I'm gonna run through this presentation wicked fast because all the cool things happen afterwards. My presentation is going to be called The Scientific Perspective into the Subconscious. And really, the underlying question I had is, what is this thing called the subconscious? Has science even looked at it? Because I always use it, but I have no idea what does it mean. Now, through discussions with my mother, I discovered that people have been thinking about consciousness and subconsciousness for thousands of years. And so my mother's presentation will focus on the thousands of years of thought from Indian-like perspectives, which will be really pretty cool. From the scientific viewpoint, there are many different definitions. There's no singular consensus on what this thing called the subconscious is. And I got kind of overwhelmed by all the different things. And I was like, well, what definition should I pick? And I decided to pick the absolute simplest so that we have something to work on. Probably no researcher would be happy with this definition, but you know, it's cited. So we have our conscious minds, and then the idea of the subconscious is pretty simple. What is below our conscious awareness is what they call the subconscious. And some people think that introspection can penetrate into that layer, and others believe that it cannot. And then below that is the unconscious, where there's a total lack of awareness, and you really can't introspect down there. Now the research community, as I did these literature reviews, which by the way are pretty cursory, I did not have time to do an exhaustive literature review, but as a community it seems that people are now shying away from using terminology like subconscious and unconscious while they're publishing papers. And a part of this might be because these words are pretty loaded. They're kind of vague. There's so much nuances in these definitions that a small change in the definition can lead to wildly different conclusions, some which may say, oh, you know what, nothing like the subconscious even exists. So it's a dangerous terrain to inhabit. And I'll just give you two examples of that. Person A may exhibit kind of violent, aggressive behavior at moments where it would not make sense. And this might be because in their childhood, they experienced trauma, had PTSD, forgot about it, and now no longer really can see the connections. So this is a classic example of the subconscious. But person B may be an acrobat, and this is actually a true story. I was talking to this acrobat who was a PhD student in physics at the time. He came to the lab to give a presentation on doing acrobatics in microgravity. And as I was talking to him, I just asked him a general question. I was like, what's just like a general lesson of life that you've learned? Not even related to acrobatics, but he said one of the biggest lessons he's learned is how to fall properly. Because when you're falling, your conscious mind often is not aware of what you're doing, and you may do unusual things. But if you train it, then you can train that subconscious or unconscious portion of your body, and then you can fall properly. So again, both of these are examples of the subconscious, but they activate different areas of the brain, have different neural circuitry, and have different solutions. So some people may say, what is the utility on relying on these definitions of subconscious and unconscious? The other thing I wondered about are what kind of evidence and experiments exist that expose the subconscious. And again, there's a lot of debate on whether these are actual evidence, and there's a lot of debate on the methodology and a whole bunch of other stuff. Some of the most maybe accepted is this idea of motor science. So for example, when I'm posturally balancing right now, I'm really not actively aware of everything that I'm doing to balance. There are all of these little reflexes that are working beneath my consciousness that are helping me posturally stabilize. In that same way, procedural skilled learning, like playing a piano, and once you automate it, you no longer pay attention to it, that also may be hidden from a lot of the processing that your conscious mind is doing. And then there's sensory motor adaptation. You're in an artificial gravity simulator, such as the one that's in the lab that I work in, a rotating room. And in that rotating room, if you try to make a reach, your arm will deviate. It'll take multiple reaches before you're able to reach properly. So that has a conscious element, but it also has a muscle memory component to it that's not fully within the realm of our conscious minds. Okay, then there's this whole literature on imitation. And imitation is like you're talking to someone and that person crosses their hands, and then all of a sudden, without you even realizing it, maybe you cross your hands too. So those are the types of things that you have. There are also other evidence on processing. So this idea that you have visual information coming in and it may break into two streams. One that goes to your conscious mind, but another where there's patterns being extracted that you're not fully consciously aware. Then there are dubious experiments that are kind of interesting and are in pop culture, but you know, are they legit? Are they not? Hard to tell. So in these experiments, what you have is that you have someone looking at multiple, apartments, and each of these apartments have different facts. And then you have to decide, well, okay, is this an apartment that I want or not? And one group of people is distracted, so they can't use their conscious processing, whereas another group of people are not distracted and they can think about it. And at least according to this experiment, people who are distracted ended up making better decisions. So again, this is an example of how maybe unconscious processing could work, but there's a lot of debate on how legit this is. Then there's evidence of subconscious in decision making. So for example, biases. You may have someone who's not inherently racist or sexist, but you ask them to make decisions at a really fast rate, and you'll begin to find that there are patterns where maybe they prefer a particular gender or race. So their decision making is being affected by processing that they're not even fully aware of. Then you've got things like priming, where you have a stimulus, you're not aware that's affecting your decision making, but it actually is affecting your decision making. So for example, one example is you telephone a bunch of people and you ask them, hey, just rate your life in general. The whole life that you've existed, how is that life? And you ask that on a sunny day, people will rate their whole life in general better than if you ask it on a gloomy day. Now, it's kind of a silly example, but the deeper idea here is the idea of neural associations. So one idea in neuroscience is if you've got different brain regions that are firing together, there's a pretty good chance that maybe they'll wire together, that they'll connect together. So you could imagine that on multiple sunny days, if you're feeling good, that emotion of goodness will connect with the sun, and you may not then remember that, oh, on sunny days I feel good. But that's going to affect the way that you interact with people, the decisions that you make on that day, and all this is trying to say is that there are all of these hidden layers that maybe are priming us emotionally and how we make decisions. Okay. Then there's all this literature on subliminal priming. And subliminal priming is when you're shown something really, really fast, like a 50th of a second. Your conscious mind can't even fully realize what it is, and yet it may have an effect on your decision making. And again, a lot of people debate this, like what is the extent of behavior being affected, but it is part of the literature, and people have found it not only in the visual realm, but in smell and other senses as well. And there are insect repellents, so don't be shy.
Yes, you should put it on your...
I will put it on in a sec. I'll finish this and I'll put it on when you have your presentation. Okay, I'm almost done with this section. And then there's threat detection. So there's this whole idea that within your mind, there is an innate alarm system, a circuit in your brain that responds through threat before your conscious mind even fully realizes what's going on. And the idea here, from an evolutionary standpoint, is that if a threat comes, your unconscious mind prepares your body so that by the time your conscious mind realizes what's happening, you can respond immediately, whether you're going to run away or whether you're going to fight. Okay, so that's essentially the stuff. Most researchers, they would accept that, okay, there's some sort of processing that's happening within or below the conscious level. There are two camps. One camp says, okay, fine, you can call it a subconscious if you want, but it's stupid. These are just basic associations that you've made, like after work, you have a smoke by the stop sign, and then years later, you no longer smoke or stand near stop signs after work, but you're walking by a stop sign, and for some reason you start getting these desires. So these are hidden associations, and most people will accept that they're there. But there's camp 2 who say that no, actually the subconscious does some pretty complex decision making and affects everything that we do. Cool. I'm just going to run through it, and then Brian, at the end, we can do questions. So, very fast, from my point of view, I think there are hidden neural associations. I think that's pretty well established. One could imagine that if you collect all of these hidden associations together, there may be some emergent property that is complex, a complex pattern of behavior that you do. I think it's important for each person to find their own language to be able to explore their subconscious. I think sometimes there are charlatans out there that promise a little bit more than actually is there. And I think sometimes a lot of new techniques can obscure just the basic principles behind what each of the tools are that we need. And just really fast, I asked a survey. I put out a survey that 9 people filled out, so thanks to them. 3 of them said I could put their names here. And these are just the results of them. And then that will finish my presentation portion of it. So we need to develop tools for exploring our hidden states, exploring our hidden states and doing introspection, for being able to understand what our subconscious is. And how do we do that? So people said journaling, talk therapy, mindfulness, meditation, breathing, verbalizing loops, dream journaling, prayer, yoga, psychedelics, sex, positive physical touch, helping others, pampering, vacations, cooking, so all of these things, writing about what produces shame, these are all different things that people have done. Today, Kimberly will be talking about revealing your subconscious through the tarot cards. And Tina will be talking about introduction to shadow work, uncovering our disowned and rejected selves. Okay, and the next set of tools we need is how to weaken unwanted associations. We know that these 2 things that are being associated need to be weakened, but how do we do it? And again, a lot of people said meditation, mindfulness, exercise, psychedelics, trauma as being visualized, being stored in different parts of your body, ayahuasca, paying attention to your breath, consulting friends, acupuncture, massage, cupping, going to baths, Chinese herbal teas, biking. And then today, as part of this, accepting the uncontrollable, Nellie will be talking about how to heal the subconscious through surrender. Another tool set that we need is to strengthen wanted associations. And so again, what different people have said is that use mindfulness, meditation. Again, some people said psychedelics over here. This was kind of cool. And this was, I found that conditioning myself with follow-up thoughts really helps. For example, I used to mentally judge people for being weird. I wanted to stop thinking that being weird is bad. So every time I catch myself judging someone for being weird, I will follow up that judgment with thoughts like, but I'm glad that they're enjoying themselves. So in a way, this is a way to strengthen the known associations that you want. And then today, part of that will also be done by Daria, who will be talking about understanding and resolving conflicts in the subconscious through movement, music, and meditation. And then, of course, a lot of people said that part of being able to have this toolkit to change your subconscious has an element of spirituality, religion, meditation, and devotional prayer. Okay, these are my citations. That finishes my presentation. And now my mom is going to come up here